Let's hype ourselves up for the Six Nations returning by looking back at some of the great memories from Calcutta Cup matches in years gone by. What are the moments you're thinking of right now? What's in your mind? What are those amazing tries or victories you're thinking of? Are they going to be ones I cover on this? Let me know in the comments down below what your memories are and your thoughts on this fixture, how excited you are for the rugby to return. Give the video a thumbs up and hit subscribe as well. And you know what? England versus France in the last round of games, that was known as Le Crunch. This fixture, you might as well just call it the Grudge, because the river runs really deep with this one. In fact, England and Scotland are the OGs of international rugby. The very first international rugby match ever was played out between England and Scotland at Rayburn Place in Edinburgh in 1871. And on that day, Scotland were wearing brown and they had a thistle stitched into their shirt. England were wearing white with a rose stitched in. 20 players played against 20. Scotland won the game 1-0 in front of 4,000 spectators. In those days, when you scored a try, it meant you had the opportunity to try and kick the ball over the posts to score a point. It was 2 tries to 1, but Scotland got the one kick and that won them the game. And a rivalry was born, a rivalry which is, well, it was not just the first game of international rugby ever, the first international match of any code of football. So rugby league, soccer, it was the first game of any of them, and it was commemorated subsequently by the lifting of the Calcutta Cup. Now, the story of the Calcutta Cup, you've probably heard it before, but briefly, there were a load of soldiers, British soldiers in India, and on Christmas Day in 1872, so a year later, representatives of England and Scotland played in a match against each other. It was so successful, they played another game the week after, and some of the guys there set up Calcutta Football Club, and that kept going for a while and was thriving. Eventually, the soldiers went back to Britain. They folded the club, but they took all the money they had and they took it to an Indian silversmith, melted it down and said, make us a trophy. They made that, brought it back with them. That's why it's got the cobras and the elephant on it. And they gifted it to the RFU, I think, on the basis that it would be an annual match between England and Scotland. And that's how that one came about. Since then, we've had some absolute belters. And you might have heard me say where the original game took place, Rayburn Place. And yes, no coincidence, that is why the Rayburn Shield has that name. Now, this is the unofficial trophy. The official trophy is the Calcutta Cup. The unofficial trophy, this is the lineal World Champions. So tracking from that very first game, as if it was a boxing heavyweight belt, that very first game at Rayburn Place in 1871, which Scotland won, charting who's held it ever since over the years. Currently, the holders, after beating France in the last round of the Six Nations, are England. So this game between the original teams is a battle for the Rayburn Shield. And there's a lot on this match. As for the overall record, England have won 71 matches to Scotland's 44. 16 draws over the history of this fixture. But as Scotland fans well know, and England fans well know, England last won this in 2020. Scotland going for 5 in a row. And 5 wins in 5 years would be remarkable when you consider that the 5 wins before that Scotland got, it took them 28 years to accumulate. So they are England's kryptonite right now, make no mistake. As for memorable matches, people of a certain age will absolutely remember when both countries came to a standstill for the 1990 Grand Slam decider in Edinburgh. Both teams have won all their games coming into this final match. The backdrop for this one, just to add a little bit of extra spice, Margaret Thatcher had just introduced the poll tax. Very unpopular generally, but especially in Scotland. And this fueled a bit of Scottish nationalism. And it featured one of Scotland's most famous rugby moments, that try for Tony Stanger, Bill McLaren on commentary, absolutely iconic.
Nicely out to Gavin Hastings. Gavin Hastings who's the kick through. On goes Stanger. Stanger could be there. Fucked, it's a try. A magnificent try for the 21-year-old. His first try in a championship.
In the days when fans would be all over the pitch after a massive win, just incredible scenes.
Whistle goes for the end of the game. And Scotland have won a famous victory. One of the unique occasions in rugby union football, and Scotland have won by 13 points to 7. And the scenes of euphoria here, well, just look at them.
At the same ground, a year later, Gavin Hastings, who gave the little kick through for Tony Stanger and was the hero of Scotland in 1990.
And he's missed it, would you believe it?
Absolutely botched a sitter of a kick that probably would have seen Scotland go through to a World Cup final. How things can change in a year. And over the 90s and noughties, generally speaking, the story was one of England dominance, which peaked in 2017 when England equalled a world record number of international wins consecutively and won their second successive Six Nations Championship with an absolute beatdown over Scotland. 61 points to 21 it finished. Jonathan Joseph scoring a hat-trick. England were absolutely rampant. Twickenham was bouncing. Eddie Jones was the hero. And England were the Six Nations champions. And that was a low ebb for Scotland. But as Gavin Hastings found out in 1991, the England team found out on Scotland's next trip to Twickenham, one of the most memorable Six Nations games we have ever seen. England 31-0 up. Absolutely cruising. Incredible bit of skill there from Henry Slade to let Johnny May in for another try. He'd been tearing it up in the competition. I remember watching this game thinking, this is done. Scotland are cooked. England are on fire. 31-0 up, half an hour. We're going to get past 61 points that we got 2 years earlier. How wrong we were. A Finn Russell-inspired Scotland. I mean, there are tales that Finn Russell just said in the changing room at half-time, right, we've tried it your way, Gregor, now we're doing it my way. However it came to be, Scotland were inspired. There was Magnus Bradbury cutting an incredible line. Darcy Graham getting on the end of an attack with a brilliant Finn Russell floated pass. I remember at this point, the doubts just started settling in. I was kind of like, no, we're still all right, we're still fine. But then, of course, when Finn Russell intercepts and goes under the sticks, I remember thinking, what on earth is happening? And then an unreal Sam Johnson score. What a line. And it's enjoy the Sam Johnson finish and then enjoy the no-look pass that put him through a hole in the first place. Absolutely sublime. Fortunately for England, George Ford spared our blushes and managed to get a try at the end. 38 all. And everyone didn't know how to feel after that game. Scotland had let one of the most memorable comebacks slip. England should have put Scotland to bed and never been under risk of losing the game, but managed to save it at the end. Bizarre, but amazing. The story since then, well, that was a draw. Since then, it's been a procession of Scotland victories and also entering the age of Duan van der Merwe in 2023. Who can forget that wonder try? And the only possible way he could top that is with a hat-trick in last year's game. England were ahead 10-0. Step forward, Finn Russell and Duan van der Merwe.
It's come off back again. We are just seeing the handling errors. But now van der Merwe given a chance on the outside. Slade can't get hold of him. And it's Duan van der Merwe. Can you believe it? He's into the corner for another one against England. Enough to stay in that. Now Scotland have got room on the outside. Van der Merwe to give the kick. Oh, it's sublime from Scotland.
So I recognise that in my look back at the most memorable moments in the Six Nations, certainly in recent memory and some in the past, the spoils have gone Scotland's way. They've got England's number. And this is why every England fan, myself included, feels very nervous going into this game. No matter what injuries there are, no matter what the recent form is, forget it all. Because it's England and it's Scotland, and it is absolutely massive. We will see how it goes. I think it's going to be tight. I think it's going to be won or lost in the last 20 minutes of the game. And bring it on. Six Nations is back before you know it. Loads more videos coming on the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Hit subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.